was an officer in naval intelligence during the Korean War. And at that time, it was 1953, I first learned that the Soviet Union had exploded its first hydrogen bomb. And I was interested in that for a lot of reasons, primarily because I was concerned about the possibility of global nuclear war. And so at that time, I joined an organization called the Lawyers Committee for Nuclear Arms Control, and that got me interested in the whole idea of getting nuclear arms control. And sometime after that, I met Marjorie Benton, and Marjorie is a longtime friend, and she suggested that I might want to join the Bulletin's board. And when I did, I should say, when Marjorie makes a suggestion like that, you can't refuse it, and I did join the Bulletin board. And it's been one of the most significant experiences in my legal career, and the Bulletin's work does not coincide with the normal legal work that I do as a corporate and business litigator. But that's how I got involved.
There were three different voices that told me about the Bulletin. One of them you just heard, that was our partner Lowell Sachnoff. Another was the person that he alluded to, which was Marjorie Benton. And the third was Bill Revell. And when you had those three voices of trusted friends, and in some cases partner, and in other cases longtime friend and clients, tell you about an organization and ask you to consider contributing to it, it was a draw for me, and it was an important step in my personal career. And I have been blessed by my involvement, which started in terms of my being able to add value as a lawyer to the Bulletin, because there were some issues that the Bulletin was facing at that time that I could add texture to in terms of my skills. But it's been so much more, and it's been such a broader experience where I have been involved in items involving things that have really had me grow as a person, and I could help add a little bit of judgment to the decisions of the Bulletin, both in terms of the governance board as well as in terms of listening to the wonderful science and security board members.
When I first joined the Bulletin board, I was on the governance committee. And the governance committee of the Bulletin is a little bit like the board of directors of a major corporation. It has the responsibility of determining and making decisions that have to do with the scope of the work of the Bulletin, how we're organized, how we manage to be consistent with the Bulletin's mission, which is to equip the public, scientists, and major policy makers with sufficient information so that they can help save the world from destruction by nuclear war, by climate change, or by man-made disruptive technologies such as cyber warfare. And the Bulletin and the Bulletin's board works arduously to be able to accomplish, to be consistent with that mission, and to accomplish the Bulletin's work.
Yeah, I'm speaking personally as one of the most informing parts of the experience as a board member has been to listen to the doomsday clock setting by the scientists. And although as a governing board member we have the benefit of participating, the vote is really at the science and security board members. And it really is heartwarming to think about the serious nature by which the scientists in their various spheres of expertise focus upon whether it's nuclear, technological changes, or climate change, focus really upon the facts as they know it and try to make the best decision with respect to the setting of the clock. And most importantly, the messages that are written post the the setting of the clock, which are then communicated to the public, because it truly is the mission of the Bulletin to move the clock back, not to move it forward. In terms of your specific question regarding the areas of expertise that have meant the most to me, it's really been able to interact with some of our partners at Reed Smith, providing services to the Bulletin. In my day practice, if you will, I often act as outside general counsel for companies. And as a result, I'm sometimes involved in the guidance and value of providing legal services, but relying upon partners and colleagues who can give specific subject matter expertise. And that's happened several times with respect to the Bulletin. In particular, the protection of the intellectual property in terms of the Doomsday Clock was probably one of our most significant contributions, working with two colleagues here in Chicago, Jim Hultquist and Josh Newman, in terms of a very complicated proprietary protection of the Doomsday Clock with another entity that wanted to use the clock or something so close to the clock, and there was an agreement that was resolved that it was very helpful, I think, to set precedent in terms of the Bulletin, and working with Josh Newman in terms of doing a better job of actually protecting the intellectual property of the Bulletin.
From my point of view, that would be a continuation of the kind of culture that we developed at Sachnoff and Weaver, and that is supported since our merger with Reed Smith, part of which is there's a life outside the office, and that life ought to include participation in community affairs and events that may not dovetail exactly with your legal profession. Austin and I have been involved with and on the boards of numerous legal organizations in the community and countrywide, because I've been on the National Board of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights for over 20 years, and the local one here. And my advice to young lawyers, and I do this a lot, is that remember that there really is a life outside of the office, and that it's important that you and the firm as a whole not just do good, but also do well. And that means broaden the horizons of what your interests are. And when you do that, it's going to end up making you a better lawyer, because you're not going to be hidebound to legal principles or legal matters. That culture will help you develop your outlook and your ability to listen, which is so important to being a good lawyer. Because one of the things that Austin and I do a lot at the Bulletin is listening to scientists.
Right.
And these are areas about which we don't know a lot, but we come away with enough of an understanding. So when we pick up the New York Times, we can read some of these articles and begin to understand what's really going on in some of the technical issues. So very simply, young lawyers, get out there and broaden your horizons.
But I echo that. I thinking about the advice I would give. I have a daughter who's in the public service area. I'm very proud of that. I think that those of us who are involved on the private side have a responsibility. But I would put it almost to a young lawyer, I would say, not only is it a responsibility, but you will gain so much more than the time that you have to allocate to it, because I, for one, have learned a great deal in not-for-profit arenas. I've also met interesting people, and some of those people become clients, so that it is a very interesting way to expand your horizons, learn a little bit about and contribute, taking your skills that you have that you can add to an organization, and it's in the old saw, a win-win. And without it, your career will not be as robust as it should be. And that would be cutting off a real opportunity to any lawyer, and any lawyer at Reed Smith knows that we as a firm embrace this and want people to be out there in the community.
Austin, what do you think about Reed Smith being honored like this for the work that, in part, that you and I have been doing?
Well, I'm speaking personally. I just would want to say that it is really quite special for me, having really learned so much about the law from you and the way in which a law firm ought to run and the way in which one should conduct one's career. To actually have to share the stage with you has really been a very, very special part of this for me.
Over 55 years, I've worked with a lot of lawyers, and I've mentored a lot of lawyers. And I can't think of any other lawyer that I've had a more gratifying experience working with and mentoring than you, because I learn a lot from younger lawyers, but you have a special place in where you've been able to teach me and encourage me to listen about areas and aspects of the law and otherwise that I never would have had any experience with at all. So it's been a wonderful mutual association that I treasure.